Today on our show, Adrian is not with us, man. He's not. He's doing Adrian things off somewhere else. But that does not mean that I'm riding solo. Oh no. We got somebody else on this episode, and we're going to be talking about certain scary things. We're going to be talking about certain things. You just got to listen to it, man, because it's about to happen to you right here on the Nerdynomicon. Welcome to the Nerdynomicon. I'm Robbie. So, 2020 is a bitch. Okay? I think that can be just universally accepted. 2020 is the spider, frog, insect things crawling into a young Sarah Palmer's mouth in Twin Peaks: The Return, man. Okay? 2020 is a giant festering pitchfork protruding from Satan's anus. 2020 is Adrian trying his hardest to find a redeeming quality in The Last Jedi. But how do you counteract all of this negativity in the world, man? I've said it many times on the show before. You create. The best way to fight the darkness, the best way to fight the depression, the best way to fight all this fucking awful, terrible, pandemic-soaked nastiness in our lives is to create. And that does not necessarily just mean create a podcast, which you are obviously listening to right now. It does not necessarily mean create a YouTube video, although that's going to be relevant to the conversation today. Sometimes that also means just something as simple as creating a new friendship. And that is the whole reason why I have brought our guest along today. This guy is absolutely awesome. He's a fellow YouTuber. He does amazing reviews. Very, very, very smart YouTuber, this guy. Okay? And he also does extremely funny skits, which we're going to be getting into. I've buried the lead enough. Let me bring on my good friend, Andrew, from youtube.com/Bladedrummer. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Give him a hand, everybody out there. Even though we can't hear you, give him a hand. He's British.
I give myself a hand. That sounds too bad.
Oh, man. So we actually met, of all weird places, on Reddit. Both of us were promoting our respective YouTube channels, both of us being small YouTubers at this current juncture, being October 15th of 2020. Let's re-listen to this episode next year when both of us blow up and have, 250K subscribers on YouTube. Where they're like, wow, humble roots. So we met on Reddit, and both of us just happened to be film tubers. And we checked out each other's channel, and immediately, at least on my end, I'm not going to speak for you, but I felt immediately a sense of camaraderie and respect for the kind of content that you're putting out.
Yeah, man, definitely. I do appreciate that, of course. But I remember when I first checked out yours, and I saw, which one was it? The first one I saw was your Dawn of the Dead analysis, and it put it in such a different light for me that I was just kind of like, holy shit, what the hell is this? Who the hell is this guy? And he's bringing out this stuff out of this film that, as much as I thought it was, I enjoyed it, but it brought out so much more of the film, and it made me look at it in such a different way. I thought, this guy is great, and we're definitely going to be getting on in the future.
I really appreciate that, man. The very first thing that I saw of yours is still, to this day, one of, if not my favorite, reviews that you've done on your channel, and that is The Watchmen.
Oh, yeah.
See, guys, Andrew likes to do little skits in his videos. Now, that might sound kitschy or whatnot, but I've got to say, your inventiveness, the scripts that you put together, and your humor is absolutely brilliant. So when I clicked on it and you started immediately out wearing a Rorschach mask, I'm like, oh, shit, he did not just go there. And the dialogue that you wrote for yourself, because do you have a twin, or is that you playing multiple roles here?
That's multiple roles. Like, you do not want a twin version of me, trust me. We would not get along.
So just some of the dialogue that you wrote, I've ended up, yes, I guess quoting Watchmen to an extent, but mostly quoting you. When somebody asks me to do something and I don't really feel like doing it, I find myself actually thinking of the very first review that I ever saw of yours, which was just, as an example, my wife earlier today asked me to take the garbage out to the curb because it's garbage day. And I looked at her. They call out into the day. Please, take the garbage out to the curb. And I whisper back, no. And she just glares at me. So that was my first introduction to you. And from there on, your reviews are, they're good. They're very good. You find a couple of specific points to really emphasize, even when you're giving spoiler-free reviews, that really is able to point the audience in a direction as to how you came to your conclusion about the media that you discuss. Because you don't just do films, you do television shows, and you do video games as well.
Yeah.
And you seem to hone in on one or two, sometimes three aspects that really kind of puts it all into perspective. Like, okay, this is good, but I'm really looking at the character study, and I'm really looking at this, and I'm really looking at that. And it really it makes me understand how you're approaching your review when you're discussing this. And you've turned me on to several things that I otherwise probably would not have checked out myself.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, yeah, when the thing is, like, when I review stuff, it's I'm pretty bad, like, reviewing something off the cuff. So if someone walked up to me and they just said, give me a review for this film, like right now, I couldn't do it. I don't think I could do it on the spot. I have to sit, I have to look at so many different aspects of the film. Although I don't sort of necessarily talk about every aspect, I feel like, as I said, I talk about enough that the viewer can like watch and listen to and be like, oh yeah, this is enough for me to want to go and see the film. And yeah, so I have to look at the cinematography, the acting, how that kind of makes me feel, how they are with their characters, if they're convincing enough, the direction. Just there's so many different aspects of it, but I try. There is a part of me that I want to do, like I want to talk about more, and I want to talk a lot about certain things, but a lot of time I generally want to do like non-spoiler reviews because.
You want people to go out and enjoy the medium themselves.
Yeah, even if it's something like quite old, like people might not have seen it. You know, some films, some things I see are like hidden gems that a lot of people maybe haven't seen or talked about. And especially something like Hereditary, which I think is something that not a huge amount of people would like have gone to see. I don't think it's that like popular, but. So therefore, I wanted it to be non-spoiler for anyone who sits there and thinks, oh, you know, Hereditary, like, oh, you know, not really that interested in it, but and then hopefully when they see the review, they might think, actually, do you know what, that looks really good, like really scary. I might want to go and watch it.
Right. Hereditary is actually a perfect example, the way you kind of dove into that. You just released that video from the time of recording, 2 weeks ago, I believe? We actually released it in conjunction with my re-release and adding on some additional content of my analysis of that film.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I had a preconceived notion as to what this film was ultimately going to be. And to a small degree, it was accurate. But I had this preconceived notion that the film was primarily going to focus on Charlie and Charlie's relationship with her mother, played by the incomparable Toni Collette, that deserves all of the awards forever.
No, she's insane.
She's a fucking actress Patronus is what she is. She's incredible. But I had a preconceived notion that that's what it was going to be about. And the trailer looked genuinely frightening. But I went to go see it opening weekend with my wife. And it was not at all what I was expecting. And that was not a bad thing either. I mean, to a degree, it actually is primarily about Charlie. But not in the way that the trailers made me think. And the way you broke down your review of it worked in, at least to my I would like to say humble, but this is going to sound incredibly arrogant. It worked in perfect conjunction with my analysis of it. The way you just kind of broke it down, it was almost like a perfect lead in to a full-on discussion about this film. And Ari Aster's films warrant and deserve discussion. So I really liked and appreciated the way you approached your review with that. And you were able to do it in such a way that you didn't bury the lead and you didn't give away any major spoilers, because this is a film that's meant to be experienced.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to admit, I didn't see Hereditary for a while after it came out. I think I'd seen the trailer and I thought, okay, that looks quite scary, but
right.
I kind of avoided it for a while. And then I remember just saying to my friend about Hereditary, because I think when Midsommar came... okay, this is another confession here. When Midsommar came out, I still hadn't seen Hereditary, right?
Okay.
And we went to go and see Midsommar. And my friend was like, dude, you need to see Hereditary as well. I was like...
You do?
Right, yeah. Fine, okay, yeah. So we went to see Midsommar, and... As you know, as I've told you before, I didn't enjoy it as much. But at that point, I was kind of like, yeah, I liked aspects of it, and there were certain things that I understood, certain meanings behind certain things, and the cinematography and stuff was absolutely stunning. But I was kind of I was kind of like a 7, 8 out of 10 kind of stance on it. And then...
That's fair.
And then I went to see, and then I just thought, right, I'm going to watch Hereditary, because apparently people are saying it's much better. Well, my friend was saying anyway. So I put it on, and by the time it finished, I felt like I was almost stuck in some kind of paralysis, because I didn't know what to say. Yeah, I didn't know, I knew what had happened, but the last 10, 15 minutes of that film has chilled my blood more than probably most films have done.
I would agree with that. I would say that the last 10, 15 minutes of Hereditary genuinely unsettled me and stuck with me more than seeing The Exorcist. Now, keep in mind, we come from a completely different generation. You know, when people saw The Exorcist when it first came out, it also had an entirely different type of marketing, and it became an experience in its own right coming out. The stories of the hypothetical curse alleged curse that surrounded it. It was a different type of viewing experience. But when I saw it, sure, it was scary, but Hereditary has stuck with me more because of the implications, the metaphors, the symbolism, etc., etc. Hereditary has wedged itself into my subconscious, and it will not let go.
Did you know that they're doing a remake for The Exorcist?
Oh yes, I knew that, and I don't know how I feel about it. They're also doing a remake of The Others, the classic with Nicole Kidman.
I honestly feel that in this day and age, I swear people are just running out of ideas, and it's all about remakes and reboots.
Well, what we're seeing right now in Hollywood because of the pandemic, I'm not going to excuse it, but this is a situation where I actually kind of understand it. When Regal is shuttering itself yet again, and there's speculation as to whether or not it's ever even going to recover, you have to start to wonder what Hollywood is going to learn from this. And Hollywood traditionally seems to learn the wrong lessons. I mean, look no further than the Marvel Cinematic Universe for that. You have Deadpool coming in with a solid R rating, a film unapologetically what it is and what it is supposed to be. A fourth wall breaking deconstruction of the superhero genre that's funny as hell. Hollywood tends to learn the wrong lessons.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, as you said, Deadpool was fantastic. I don't think 2 was as good as 1, but I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was good. Same
here. And as far as another R-rated comic book movie, I give all of the love in the world to Logan. But again, Hollywood seems to take the wrong lessons from what these films are trying to do as far as being pieces in and of themselves. I mean, like I said about Deadpool, it was a fourth wall breaking deconstruction and almost satire of the superhero genre. That's what it was, and that's what it was supposed to be. Logan is essentially a Western with mutants, with superhumans, you know? But certain studios take certain things from it, because then you get things like BVS. Like, oh, okay, you guys want us to be gritty and real. Well, we're going to give you this, and then we're going to slap some Doomsday on it, wave some Doomsday dick right in your face. And we're like, that's not what you should be taking from this. That's not the lesson you need to learn.
No, DC have sort of taken their time. But the thing is, every time they try and do what Marvel's doing, Marvel's already one step ahead of them. They're already doing something different. And then DC are like, oh, shit, we're kind of left in the dirt here. And... like, although to be fair, more recent films, aside from Birds of Prey, which I thought was pretty naff.
I liked Birds of Prey.
Oh, did you? I wasn't a big fan of it.
It was far better than Suicide Squad.
Oh, I mean, what isn't better than Suicide Squad? But yeah, and Jared Leto as Joker, like I don't even consider him as Joker at all. Like, just
no, he's like Big Daddy Kane with makeup that's trying his hardest to be the Kool-Aid Man. I mean, seriously, how many walls can you break out of with a grill? You know, walking in like Paul Wall. I don't care for it. I don't care for it, Jared Leto. I don't care for this whatsoever. And I'm sorry, method acting does not include sending used tampons and dead rats to your co-stars. That's not method acting. That's being weird. Okay?
Yeah, it's a bit weird. And like, we know who you are. Like, we know you're the Joker. You don't need to have fucking damage tattooed across your head to tell us what you are.
Precisely. And I keep going back to the fucking grill. The Joker does not have a grill. Sorry.
Oh, so I honestly, I could go on about how awful he is for ages, but I was also going to say that I really enjoyed Shazam. I thought
Shazam was good.
That was a good film.
Yep.
Despite what people say, I actually quite liked Aquaman. I don't know if you've seen it.
Much love to James Wan on that. Yes.
James Wan is like he's so what's the word? He's so vast in what he can do. I mean, he's great with his horrors as well. Like,
oh God, yes. I mean, when he came into prominence with the original Saw, him and Lee Winnell, he had a very distinct, very weird, very unique style that even now, even after seeing it multiple times, I'm not sure if I truly actually love, or if I just appreciate that it's something that you don't see every day. But he really came into his own with like the Conjuring films, and once he got the helm of Aquaman, I thought that he did a great job. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, The Conjuring, I would say, if not for Hereditary, was probably a film that scared the shit out of me.
That's fair. You and like most of the rest of the people that watched it. Absolutely.
Jesus Christ, The Conjuring. I think I avoided seeing the second one because I was like, if it's more this one, I don't know if I can do it. I can't take it.
I liked it. I liked The Conjuring. Then Annabelle kind of screwed it up, but that's beside the point.
Oh, Annabelle, blech. The fact they ruined it when they started doing the Conjuring universe, and they started taking characters that basically were only good because they had support around them in a film. Whereas you take the nun, who's literally she can't hold her own in her own film, and
no, she can't. And
Jesus
she
Christ,
tried,
that was awful.
but
Jesus
she failed miserably.
Yeah, it wasn't. I watched it, and like you know, the thing is with general horror films, and you know when it's shit when you can tell when the jump scares are coming because they're not jump scares, they're so cheap. They are so cheap, it is unreal.
I mean, the proper term is jump scares. I've started to develop my own vocabulary when it comes to horror. I like to call them telegraphed scares. Okay, you know something's coming. All right, and for the uninitiated in horror, sometimes it's good to have those telegraph scares. Okay, because they may not be used to it. But you know it's coming, and then, you get that scare, and it's a nice little release. But that's not what I personally am looking for.
No, I mean, it's the thing where someone's standing there, and then someone comes up behind them and goes, oh, hello, but then there's a big boom! And you're just like, well, why? What was the actual point in that?
Precisely.
I mean, it's awful, man. Like, people aren't just coming up with... As I said before about, like, originality and remakes and reboots... It's very hard to come up with an original horror film because most of the actual decent ones, you know, the legendary ones were like done in the 80s. You know, like Nightmare on Elm Street and things like that, and Friday the 13th. They're all the kind of the big ones that kind of...
Yep. Starting... I mean, there's an argument to be made. I mean, the slasher genre was essentially born in the 1960s with Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
I guess so, yeah.
It then got another very supreme edition with 1973's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After that, you've got Black Christmas that lots of true scholars will say, all right, this is where it's happening. The vast majority, myself included, really state the true golden age of horror from 1978's Halloween, which is, to me, one of the few examples of perfect cinema out there. That, Ghostbusters, I mean, they're some of my favorite movies of all time. But starting in 1978, you've got your icons with Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees coming out in 1980, 1983's giving us Nightmare on Elm Street. You got Freddy Krueger in there. You got your Chucky, your Hellraiser. Yeah, I mean, the golden age is absolutely in the 80s. 100% agree.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, there's, like, when you really look at the synopsis and what they're trying to do with these horror films, the one that stands out to me that's probably the most genius one is Nightmare on Elm Street, because you are literally like making a film about this guy who kills you when you sleep. Yep. And that just scared the shit out of me when I was younger, because all it makes you think is, I don't want to go to sleep because I don't want to see Freddy in my dreams.
Yep.
And it's probably more scary than thinking about a big ass dude with a hockey mask, you know?
I agree. Yeah, as a core concept, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
I mean, Jason was scary. He was like a silent killer, you know? But then so was Michael Myers as well. They both were. They were both kind of, quite similar into how they do what they do. I guess Jason was a bit more violent, but...
Oh, yeah. His body count's far higher.
Although they didn't need to make 10 of them. I think it was 10, maybe 11. And then they did remakes of Friday the 13th, which weren't great. Yep. But
there is 11, including Freddy vs. Jason. Then there was the remake. I rather enjoyed the remake of that. That was one of the few remakes of the classic horror movies that I enjoyed.
What did you think of the recent? I say remake. Apparently the actual sequel to Halloween, the more recent one that came out.
Okay, that is a rabbit hole. Okay, how many of the Halloween films have you seen?
I saw the first 3, I think, and then I kind of gave up after Season of the Witch because it just didn't do anything for me, and it wasn't really Halloween anymore to me. Like, it just, I don't know, it wasn't great.
All right. Interesting tale on that. Halloween was originally envisioned to be an anthology series when it was first created by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who was his then girlfriend. They penned the very first screenplay, and they also penned the screenplay for the third film together. Right. Halloween was intended to be an anthology. As a matter of fact, Halloween 3 was supposed to be Halloween 2. Essentially. Okay. It was supposed to be a potentially unending franchise, you know, infinite possibilities that you can do. The only through line was going to be that it takes place on Halloween. And the very first iteration of this was our masked killer, Michael Myers, who's credited in most of the films as simply The Shape. I love 1978's Halloween. I love the way every single shot is framed in a certain way so that everything is slightly off axis, so that there's something going on in the background that keeps your paranoia alive. Going from there, you have Halloween 2, which is a continuation of the story. It was something that was never supposed to be, but the studio, specifically Mustafa Akkad, rest in peace, Mustafa Akkad, really wanted to cash in on the Michael Myers story, so they gave it a definitive ending. Then from there, you've got 4, 5, and 6, which bring together a continuity where Michael Myers is powered by an evil Nordic rune, and you've got the Cult of Thorn. Right. From there, they strip away the continuity. Now the continuity goes Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween H2O with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then Halloween Resurrection.
The Rob Zombie one was a bit crap, I'll be honest. I think that is another one I did see. I
totally agree. From there, you've got that continuity. Then that is all stripped away in favor of the Rob Zombie Halloween franchise. Now we have a sympathetic Michael Myers. Now we dive into his origins, which is something that I went to go see it in theaters, okay? Because I love the Halloween franchise. I love what it represents. I love what Michael Myers, aka The Shape, was supposed to represent. He was supposed to be the boogeyman. He was supposed to be the evil that resides in men's hearts. He was supposed to be danger in suburbia. He was supposed to be that ineffable force that is always present with us. You know, and that's exactly what the final few shots of the original Halloween was supposed to be, where you just see the scenes, the locations in that film, while you hear Michael Myers breathing through his mask. That's what it's supposed to be. The Shape is still out there. Behind any corner, you don't know. He's still out there. You will always have that paranoia with you, because he could be in your neighborhood next. That's what that was supposed to be. Rob Zombie gave us Hellbilly Michael Myers, where you've got possibly some incest going on throughout the two movies. You definitely got some Oedipal things happening here. You've got more sexual assault in the mental institution. Michael Myers goes from this attempt at making him sympathetic into a weird hulking mass akin to Jason Voorhees. I appreciate what he was trying to do. I appreciate the unique take. I don't care for it. I don't. And I absolutely detested the second one. It was Rob Zombie at his Rob Zombiest, okay? And I'm actually, I would say, a little bit more than a casual fan of what he does. I like House of a Thousand Corpses. It makes me feel very uncomfortable watching it. It makes me feel like I need a shower directly after. But I like House of a Thousand Corpses. I loved The Devil's Rejects. Now, that is a movie that I cannot watch without ordering Prozac on my pizza, but I loved it. I thought that he did phenomenal. The screenplay was great. The nihilistic atmosphere was incredible, and I love how it had a definitive ending. I loved it. I don't understand why the hell 3 from Hell had to be made, but whatever. Lords of Salem, I thought was an incredible movie. I thought that movie was superb. Arguably his best film. What the hell was he trying to do with the Halloween reboots? I don't get it, especially Halloween 2. I just thought that it was absolute shit. The first time that we hear Michael Myers speak, the word is die. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I mean, if we kind of go back a bit to the first Halloween, if I had to say even just a little bit about the first one, which is why it was so genius in what it did, was I would say that for all filmmakers of that kind of genre, you should take note that less will always be more.
Yes.
Just give the viewer the bare essentials, nothing more, nothing less, and your job will be done.
Yes. Absolutely.
And to be fair, I would, of course, I would be remiss not to mention the superb underpinning of Carpenter's musical score.
Which is lauded by many to be the scariest aspect of the film.
Something that's built around a 3-note motive, a spark of genius, just disturbingly effective in its repetitive simplicity.
Yep.
Fantastic.
In the original viewing for studios of Halloween, it was rejected by multiple studios because they said, and I quote, "This film is not scary." Because they tried to take that minimalistic approach by going in the same kind of direction that slasher films had gone in previously. And I'm talking about Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, etc., where they tried to cut all of the other sounds and just let the silence be the aspect of it. It wasn't until John Carpenter went back, created the score, and then added it in that it was immediately picked up. And then in test audience viewings and during its opening weekend, usually there's studio execs and, scouts that are out there watching for audience reactions. That's why lots of times at premieres, you'll be able to actually catch footage of the audience there because they're trying to leak that out. I mean, some of the most famous examples of that is for Paranormal Activity.
Oh, don't even get me started on that film.
Lots of people, not all, but lots of people covered their ears, not their eyes, their ears during the scary parts in Halloween because the score was what did it for them.
Yeah.
The John Carpenter's iconic score for Halloween was absolutely perfect. So, right now, going back to actually finally answering your question, you've got a total of 3 different continuities here. Okay? You've got Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Then 4, 5, 6 is stripped. Then you've got Halloween 1, 2, 7, and 8. Then that's stripped, everything stripped in favor of the Rob Zombie film, which then got a sequel, but, I don't have enough alcohol here to actually dive into it. Let's just say that there's a horse involved. Michael Myers says die. We're just going to leave it at that. It's fucking shit, okay? There's a reason you can get it for less than $5 at Walmart. So let's just strip that out. Now we have our 4th continuity, starting with Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018, also titled Halloween. There's no sequel. There's no tag. There's no subtitle there. There's no nothing. It's Halloween followed by Halloween.
Yeah.
A direct sequel to the original. All right. So it even strips out the second one, which John Carpenter famously detested anyway. What did I think of this film? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the fact that John Carpenter went back in the music studio and redid his score for this movie. Okay, I love how he created such a minimalistic reinterpretation and re-envisioning of his original score that just seemed to fit perfect with the atmosphere that they were able to create in this movie. I love the fact that the script was so good that they got Jamie Lee Curtis to come back. I love that it was so good that even after an ultimate insult in Halloween Part 6, or Halloween as we now know it, The Curse of Michael Myers, they originally wanted to get Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd in 4 and 5. They wanted to get her back in, but they would only pay her $1,000 for her appearance. Oh. The minute she tried to start negotiating, they dropped her immediately without even looking at her counteroffer.
Wow, okay.
Danielle Harris wanted to come back for this movie. They decided to go in a different direction, but we don't know everything that's happening with the future films in this franchise. What did I think of 2018's Halloween? I loved it. I loved it. But the reason I had to go through the history of Halloween is because it's complex to me. I actually enjoyed a lot of these sequels. I really did. I liked Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 as a self-contained narrative. I enjoyed some of those movies. Some of them, based on nostalgia, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed trying to come up with headcanon on how to fit Halloween H2O into that. Maybe she faked her death and then gave her baby up for adoption, and that's how Jamie ended up there, and it's all one big continuity. That kind of makes Laurie Strode sound like a terrible person to a degree, but whatever. I enjoyed that aspect of it. I like a lot of these other Halloween movies. But when you really look at it, Halloween has a long legacy of redoing its own continuity. String theory in horror, if you will. Multiple dimensions where Michael Myers just goes as a relentless killing machine. But more than anything, what I loved in the 2018 reboot sequel was their attempt to turn Myers into the Shape again. You never see his face. You never see his motivation. The most you see is his dark eyes staring back up at Jamie Lee Curtis at the very end.
It's like almost like, because you can't see the eyes, you can just see this empty dread,
Right, exactly. I ultimately agree with John Carpenter. It took something away from the Shape the minute you gave him a motive. The minute you realize that Laurie Strode is his sister and he's come back to finish the job of killing his entire family, and then expanding on that, the minute you gave him that, you gave the Shape / the Boogeyman motivation. He has a mission to fulfill. Halloween 2018 went back to its original roots and gave absolutely nothing. It did not give an inch of motivation. Laurie Strode is no longer his sister. She's just traumatized after the events that happened. Michael Myers was pretty much immediately re-picked up and put back into an institution after the rampage that he went on back in 1978. And then he re-emerges and comes back out. And the only reason that he has another showdown with Laurie Strode is because Laurie Strode seeks him out. That is the only reason. Because Laurie needs to reconfront evil, to reconfront her own. To speak in terms of Carl Jung, she needs her confrontation with the shadow. That is why we have that confrontation again. Otherwise, the boogeyman is back. Death has come back to Haddonfield. And that scene is perfectly personified when you see Myers just walking through the streets. He goes in through the back door and just randomly starts killing people in this one house. You know? The fact that he kills a young child in the film. Evil incarnate. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It just makes me sad that so many decades of continuity were stripped away, but they reignited the flame that was The Shape. Okay, so I went on a huge rant here, but did that answer your question?
No, yeah. I mean, all I was going to add was that I think that the film, the newest film in the franchise, I think it's a good mix of like new kind of hardcore and brutality style of like the noughties, while it also remains faithful to like its sort of tense and eerie kind of predator/prey like vibe.
Yes, agreed. Now, you brought up an interesting word that may not resonate with the everyday casual American audience. Lots of people that listen to this podcast, in fact. I mean, lots of people listen to the show, and I get a lot of correspondence from people that they love what we do here because they don't tend to think or dive too deep into film. And this is like their jumping in point for film analysis and film discussion and whatnot. Right. So based on that, can you expand on what you just said with the naughties? Because that's something that we do not have here in the United States.
Well, it's
we're not talking about getting spanked by a woman in a dominatrix outfit. Although maybe they do that there as well. I don't know.
Well,
I hear they do weird things in Sussex.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm not.
I don't know how to reply to that.
It's interesting to try and sort of break it down. I mean, the noughties would be from the decade from sort of 2000 to 2009, I'd say.
Okay.
That's what we kind of call it. Late 90s, early sort of noughties. Like you'd say, like girl groups, like Spice Girls and stuff like that. You would say they were in the noughties.
Okay. Fair enough.
There's not really much more to it, to be honest.
In all honesty, you actually just kind of taught me something there. I specifically thought you were referring to the naughty list, like the nasties. Maybe it was called.
No. That's something else here. The naughties.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. What am I thinking of? Is it the nasties? The video nasties?
I think it's
Cannibal
nasties.
Holocaust was on that for a while. Silent Night, Deadly Night was thrown in there as collateral damage. So what was that? The nasties, not the naughties?
I think it was the nasties. Yeah, the naughties, like in the for the English anyway, or the British. It's kind of a name for the decade. It was never universally sort of accepted in the same manner as for decades such as the 80s and the 90s. But the noughties is still something that we use.
The naughties. We call it the aughts over here, or, the 2000s. But the naughties. I like that. I mean, God knows I was especially naughty during that time. Some shit happened in the early 2000s that we don't need to talk about on this particular program. I can always create another program to talk about what happened in that time period. But I would say that the naughties are pretty appropriate, yeah.
Tune in for Triple X Nomicon later on.
Nerdy Nomicon After Dark. Way after dark.
Way after dark. So what's that, morning?
Let's just call it that spot in the night where it's the darkest right before the dawn. That sounded metaphorical, but I'm just talking about the darkness of the night, the way after dark. Your parents are already asleep at this point. So overall, did you enjoy the 2018 reboot?
Yes, I did. I was pleasantly surprised, and I also thought that Carpenter's newer score for the film was actually really good as well.
Completely agreed on that. It was so good that The ending was specifically constructed to do one of two things: give final closure to the film series, or leave it slightly open to continue on. Well, it did well enough, making more money than any other Halloween movie had done to this point, making over $150 million in the box office opening weekend. So we're getting two more. We're getting Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, I think, are the two names.
I think so.
Regardless, Halloween Kills was supposed to come out this year, but then the apocalypse happened, and now we're not getting it. So it's coming out in 2021. Originally, Candyman, the Jordan Peele-produced Candyman reboot, was supposed to take its time slot, or its release date. But that got pushed to 2021 as well.
Again, another remake.
Another remake, but we're in a different era now, okay? This is kind of what I want to talk about. We were discussing behind the scenes, where we stood and, some of the things that we wanted to talk about in this particular episode. And by the way, expect a lot more of Andrew, okay? Because there's some things happening behind the scenes that you guys are going to be privy to right when things are getting ready to pop off. But expect a lot more from Andrew. He's going to be on here a lot more.
Very excited.
All right, so Hollywood obviously is going through yet another cycle of remakes and reboots. Now, you can argue that it never truly left, but in a lot of ways it did, okay? In the early noughties, we had a nice little time with rebooting and remaking a lot of the Castle Rock, or not Castle Rock, excuse me, the Dark Castle films. All right, William Castle's old movies. I'm talking about 13 Ghosts, The House on Haunted Hill, Gothica was something new, but we got a new House of Wax out of it. We had those movies getting rebooted. Then in the, what do we call 2010 to 2020 in England? I mean, we got the naughties, or is that like the Triple X or the Spank Me's?
I don't know. I don't particularly think we have a word for that.
All right, we're going to start calling them the Spank Me's. So starting off with the Spank Me's, we had the reboot of the Friday the 13th franchise, okay? Starring, what's his nuts? Jared Padalecki from Gilmore Girl fame and, Supernatural.
Love Supernatural.
Same here. I personally really enjoyed it. I thought that it did a really good job at combining the continuity and lore of the first three movies into approximately 20 minutes and then going off in a different direction. I liked what they were trying to do there. Then we got a reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. And
meh.
My God. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I hated it. Okay, I absolutely hated it. And I am a huge Freddy Krueger fan. Out of all of the slashers, he is my homeboy because he takes such joy and pleasure in his work. He's a dude that's excited to go to work every day. He's like, ugh, boy, it's nighttime. I gotta go catch me a bitch. You know what I mean? He loves what he does, and I appreciate that. But the reboot was awful. And it seems like everybody in the world agrees with me on that. So I do have a script written, and it's going to be coming out on YouTube, hopefully by the end of this month, as to why it's so bad, what about it was terrible, and how we could fix it. Now we're in a completely new era of reboot/remake, because now we have Halloween. We also have a reimagining of Child's Play. Have you seen that one?
The one with Mark Hamill doing a voice.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty good. It was like an average kind of horror film that I just kind of I thought was okay, and I kind of liked how they were kind of putting it into this kind of day and age with like the technology and how it's not like a possessed doll. It was just a fucking doll that just went mental, because the technology and the chips are fucked
essentially
up
it became an evil app. It became an app that went crazy.
Which could easily happen, by the way.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So, I mean, I did not particularly love it simply because I love the concept of the killer's soul being transferred into the body of the doll. I liked that story, that voodoo-esque story. I enjoyed it. That was my Chucky. But I appreciated and respected the new interpretation and the direction that it wanted to go. All right? It is what it is. We have the success of the new Halloween and the sequels that have already been created and or are being created that are coming out.
Do you personally think that the sequels are... because basically, to me, the sequels are just kind of more of the same. And do you think there should be 2 more films, or do you think they could have just ended it at this one and left it at that?
Ask me that question next year.
Okay.
After seeing how good Halloween 2018 was, I did want more movies. Right. Because I wanted more time with some of those characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
want more time. I want more of the experience. I want more films to flesh out some of the themes that they were trying to convey. I want more characterization from these characters. I want more of what they gave me. Now, it is absolutely possible that they're going to give me more of what I don't want and drop the ball, and we're going to perpetuate the cycle, which at some point, the way we look at Halloween is going to become metaphorical. Okay? At some point. But I don't know how I'm going to feel about them until I watch them.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where you think to yourself, can Michael Myers actually be killed? Like, is he killable? Because, I mean, can I talk spoilers or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right.
From this point on, we're going to continue talking spoilers, all right? For Halloween 2018. All the other movies we've talked about, they've been like 20, 30 years old. But now we're going back 2 years. So if you have not seen 2018's Halloween and you want to, stop the podcast now, go watch it, then come back, pick back up, because Andrew's about to get sexy on here. Hit us.
I think it's when, obviously at the end, when they set the house on fire and they kind of trap him, and you kind of think to yourself, well, there's no way to escape this. But you kind of almost know in the back of your head that he has, somehow. I don't know how, because they had done a really good job into trapping him in that house and setting it alight, but yeah, I'm not too sure, but I kind of felt like they could have ended it there, like that had generally killed him, and that could have been it.
And that was one of the potential interpretations of the end of that movie. I mean, if the film only did a certain amount, that was going to be the definitive ending. And the fact that you see him not at all in any of the tracking shots was supposed to be representative of the fact that evil lives on.
Yeah.
But that was going to be the definitive ending. But the film did so well that they were able to go forward because they did have ideas on how to turn this into a trilogy. With Carpenter's blessing, by the way. And
I mean, that's reason enough then. I mean, I'm going to, it's not like I'm not going to give it a chance. I will obviously go and see it because I want to see what they do with it. And then obviously,
right.
If it says Halloween ends, that's surely the definitive kill off Michael Myers, job done. You don't need to worry anymore.
Until the next time we decide to reboot the franchise.
Nah, fuck yeah.
But my ultimate point is we're living in a different time. Okay? It's a time that I would say that began being ushered in with J.J. Abrams taking the helm of the new Star Wars series. No, Star Trek series. Fuck it. Star Trek series. We now are living in an era where the fans of some of these intellectual properties now have jobs. And I'm not talking a job as a barista in Starbucks. I'm not talking a job as a cable guy or as a bill collector. I'm talking as directors and actors, and even more importantly, studio execs, where you have fans of the original Star Trek series or the Star Trek The Next Generation series that are now in vice president and president positions in major studios, where you have fans of the Star Wars series that are directors that actually have a cachet, that actually have weight behind their projects, as was the case of J.J. Abrams when he took over the Star Wars project. Now we live in an era where the fans of these intellectual properties have the ability to go in there and write love letters and turn those love letters into motion pictures.
Yeah.
So whether or not you liked how J.J. Abrams ended up steering the series, which, by the way, I hated the last movie.
Yeah.
We live in this world now where we have fans of the Halloween franchise that have loved it since they can remember making or watching films, that are now able to make a film that whose screenplay was so good that John Carpenter, who swore that he would never touch Michael Myers again, especially after Deborah's death, came back, gave his blessing.
Yeah.
Wrote the score for it. I mean, he said to Rob Zombie, make it your own. And then famously said, yeah, I hated that. That was terrible. He came back, gave his full blessing, and not just gave his blessing, but worked with them. Worked with the filmmakers in this film, man. Where we got Jamie Lee Curtis out of retirement to come back yet again for a Halloween franchise. Okay? After she's been killed off on screen. Okay? This is a woman whose career is legendary. And we got her back. That leads me down the rabbit hole of when can we expect the same type of love letters to the other heavy hitters in the genre? We saw what they tried to do with Child's Play. Whether you love it or not, it was a new idea and it was a new direction. I didn't love it. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't love it. But I respect the fucking hell out of what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Who's going to pick up the reins for Nightmare on Elm Street? Who's going to pick up the reins for Friday the 13th? Because there's been rumors circling around about both of them. And because of Section 203 of the copyright law, the rights have been reverted back in a lot of cases here.
Okay.
So I can say definitively, just because I've looked into it, the rights to Freddy Krueger, the rights to Nightmare on Elm Street, belong to the Craven estate. And they are simply waiting for the right script and the right person to come along to do Freddy justice. Who's it going to be? When is it going to happen? The rights for Children of the Corn have reverted back to Stephen King.
Do you when you're talking about Freddy, there was something that kind of, when I thought about doing another remake or reboot or whatever the hell you want to call it, and I thought that with Freddy, I don't know whether you agree with this or not, but did you think that this is going to sound as blunt as hell, did you think that Freddy was a paedophile?
Yes. Freddy Krueger was always supposed to be a pedophile. They dropped that from the original script because it was too dark.
Because I always thought that it was never explicitly said, although it's kind of hinted at, and it's also clear that, Freddy, he toys with his victims before a kill, which amounts to some kind of molestation.
Yes. It was never explicitly stated that he was a child molester, because especially back in 1983, that would have taken the MPAA by storm, and they would have been like, oh, you're doing this and he was a former child molester? No, NC-17, bitch, if we let you release it at all. Freddy Krueger was always supposed to be a molester. He was always a child molester, but it was never stated. It was always implied. And to me, that subtlety gave it a little bit more weight, because the acts that he did were so evil that they were unspeakable. You know what I mean? And so coming right out and say it, especially with a fake turnaround in the remake, was, I think it lost a lot with what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, because obviously his burns are like punishment, aren't they? Like a product of the revenge of the parents of the children.
Precisely.
Murdered, yeah.
Precisely. Now, there were other things that were supposed to be in the original Nightmare on Elm Street script as well. As a matter of fact, deleted scenes that have been popping up all over the place even show that. It gives further motivation to the parents of the Elm Street children. Nancy was supposed to have a brother. Nancy was not an only child. Nancy had a brother who was killed by Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of this paranoia came from. Glenn had a sister. Rod had an older brother. All of these children, they weren't only children. They weren't. They all had siblings. And that adds even more weight to the story of Freddy. You can add stuff like that back in. And you can add almost even saying that Freddy was a molester, but stopping just short of it. Because at some point, considering what Freddy did to his victims, by saying that out loud, it's almost like it re-traumatizes the dead. You know what I mean? You can have that subtlety. By coming right out and specifically stating it, explicitly stating it in some cases in the remake, it lost so much of the cachet that the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise had. We all knew we didn't have to state it. Period. You know?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I'm interested to see if someone does take it on and how they go about doing his kind of backstory, and if they do kind of even look into it. Because it's already been sort of hinted and implied at in the other films. Do they need to do it again? Do they need to imply it, or just kind of jump straight into it as to this is the dude and he's gonna fucking get in your dreams and kill you? Or is it just kind of, let's just have a quick look at how he became Freddy, thinking that people haven't seen it before?
Exactly.
I don't know. You know.
Exactly. Other things that have been kicked around. Did you know that there was a plan for a found footage Friday the 13th?
That, I don't know how I feel about that.
A found footage Friday the 13th that takes place in the winter. We would have gotten to see Jason in the snow.
That would be scary.
That would be really scary, wouldn't it? But yeah, the concept involved all of these teens and stuff like that going on like almost a Blair Witch style outing into the woods with GoPros strapped to their heads. I think that the idea is just weird enough in a schlocky, campy, no pun intended, well, actually, no, pun intended, franchise that it might just work. It might just work, dude.
Yeah, found footage can either be scary as hell or absolute trash.
Yes, it can. I feel like it's utilized when it shouldn't be and underutilized when used in a lot of cases. Not everything is Blair Witch Project and As Above, So Below and Paranormal Activity. Not everything kind of holds that weight, but... Yeah,
Paranormal Activity, I mean, I remember when I first went to see that, because I didn't really kind of know... I don't even know if I watched a trailer. I just think that someone just said, like, oh yeah, let's just go and watch Paranormal, and, you know, me, like, just wanting to just go and hang out with my friends and just go and see a film. I was like, cool, let's go and see it, whatever. I don't know what it's going to be. And then it scared the shit out of me, and I don't think I slept for a good couple of days after I saw it. I mean, the fact is that it was stationed the majority of the film in a bedroom where everyone goes to sleep. Yep. And it was, honestly, I think the time when her leg comes out of the bed and she gets dragged out and then dragged along the hallway.
Oh God, that was nightmare fuel.
I would not. I didn't take my leg out of my bed for a good while after that. I was like, I don't even care if I'm hot. My leg's not coming out of my bed covers. I don't care. Yep. I'm staying right there with safe and snuggly in my duvet.
And what exactly is it that's so magical about those bed covers? You know what I mean? We all, even now, I'm 5 years old, okay? Even now, sometimes I get creeped out watching a movie or I get a little bit scared at night. It's human nature, okay? Fuck y'all. But even now we hide under the covers like it's some sort of protective shell, like it's an adamantium armor, when in actuality it's like fabric and feathers lots of times, you know what I mean? But we all do it, don't we? We hide under the covers like it's some sort of protective carapace. We do. What is it about it, man? And to see her get dragged out from under that, just her leg is there and it just drags her out of her protective shell. Oh, it collectively scared the world. I don't care who you are, man. It scared the shit out of you the first time you saw it.
Yeah, I completely understand. And it was, I think it was kind of nearer to the end. Although I thought the husband was so stupid because...
Oh, Micah? Yeah.
He was just... like, I think when it first started kind of terrorizing them a bit, and he was just walking around going, "Oh yeah, come on then, I'll take you on." I was like, shut the fuck up, man. If this shit is happening in your house, I don't fucking care what's happening. You leave. You don't stay another night in that house. I don't care if you just paid for it, however much you've paid for it. You leave instantly. If I'm in my bed, right, and someone fucking pulled me out my fucking bed, and I just about got away, why the hell would I stay another night in that house?
Oh, same here.
Honestly, people in horror films, they're just all written to be stupid. So many of them are just written to be idiots.
Right there with you, man. Right there with you. And you know what? This conversation brought to you by a pop culture junkie who is obsessed with horror movies, has been since he was 5 years old, and somebody who self-admittedly is not a really big horror fan.
No. Do you know, it's I got a bit of a story about this, actually. This is an interesting one, if you want to hear it, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is how I became to not like horror films. So, growing up, I was very imaginative. Like, I've got a huge imagination that's 24/7 coming out of ideas. I loved English class because I would always write stories. I was always coming out of ideas. And I hadn't seen a horror film till I was about 14, I think. And
wow, 14 before your cherry was popped?
Yeah, I mean, like, literally, my mum knew my imagination. My mum knew how big my imagination was, and she said, "I don't want you watching a horror film." And
Jesus
I was like,
Christ, I can't wait to tell you what I watched at 14. Holy shit.
And so, yeah, I didn't. And I was like, right, okay, what? But, you know, the kind of rebellish part of me was like, I just kind of want to see one. I don't know why she's trying to keep me away from it. And then one day my friend said to me, "Oh, do you want to watch, like, Freddy versus Jason?" And I said, "Oh, was that like a horror film?" And he was like, "Nah, it's just an action film. Don't worry about it." And I was like, right, okay, fine. That's cool. So we watched it, and I saw Freddy, and I saw what he did. And I have never, ever been more terrified in my whole life than I was at that point right then. Because once the film finished, I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, it's not really a scary film, what are you talking about?" But for someone who'd never seen a horror film before, and finally seeing what Freddy was actually like, that terrified me so much that I actually didn't sleep. Like, I was literally physically shaking in my bed when I had to go to bed because I was so scared of, like, going to sleep because I just didn't want to, and I thought that Freddy was going to get me because my imagination was just fucking going wild. And even during the day I was scared. I was like, I know it's going to be nighttime soon and I've got to go to sleep. I think by that point I kind of got over it, and I think I literally tired myself out so much that I kind of almost knocked myself out. But yeah, after those kind of 3 days, I just kind of was like, wow, I do not want to watch a horror film ever again after that. And yet somehow I seem to have seen a lot more than I ever thought I ever would in my life. But
yeah, after this conversation, did you even realize that you've seen so many horror movies?
No, I mean, when I look back and people start talking about horror films, I'm like, why the fuck did I watch all these? Like, it definitely took me a while to, I wouldn't even say get over it, because I'm still kind of bad now. Like, if I watch a really decent horror film that's really fucking scary, like, I will kind of still be, like, up for about, like, an hour or two with my eyes open, just, like, looking around, and there's, like, half of my brain going, yeah, this is real, it's going to get you, and then the other half of my brain going, don't be such a fucking idiot and just go to sleep. And
there are a lot of movies that even now still hit me with that, and I am a huge horror fan. Like, Insidious, still to this day, after all the times I've seen it, it still fucks with me.
That, once I saw that fucking black and red demon, like, I shat myself. I was like, what the fuck is... It's like basically like if Darth Maul had taken his clothes off.
Yes! Yes, bitch! It's like Darth Maul wanting to stick his double-sided dick in your eye. Yes!
And I just kind of... I tried to kind of watch... I say, like, thrillers and, like, films about murders and, like, murderers and zombies and vampires and stuff. They don't scare me. Like, I'm fine with that. Vampires used to scare the hell out of me until I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then I wasn't that bothered anymore for some reason.
Yeah, I get that.
But then I think zombies scared me at one point as well. Like, I remember having, like, a couple of dreams where it would be, like, first-person viewing of, like, zombies, like, tearing my guts out while I couldn't move in my bed. those like honestly scared the shit out of me. But yeah, I've always been, because my imagination's so huge, it can be great for me. It can be such a bonus. Hence why I'm also writing a book at the same time, at the minute anyway. But then it's also a detriment to me, because when it's dark around me, I instantly think about every single horror film I've ever seen in certain situations. Like I go in my garage and I'll turn my light on and the light starts flickering and I'm like, fucking hell, man. And I start thinking about all the horror films that have had that same kind of, being in that same situation, and I just shit myself, and I want to get in, get what I need to get and piss off before whatever it is in there gets me. Or when I'm about to go up the stairs and I have to turn off the final light and I run up the stairs and it almost feels like there's something behind you, like this hand coming up behind you ready to grab you, but you just get to the top of the stairs and then you feel safe. So yeah, that's always been a big thing for me as to why I hated horror films. I still fucking watch them to this day, and I don't even know why. I think I've gotten a bit better for it now. Definitely got a bit better as I've kind of grown up, but I will never forget those 3 nights of terror that I had of being subject to a horror film with a huge imagination. And yeah, I'll never forget that. It was horrible. So that's the story, and that's why I don't particularly like horror films as much as others.
And this was Freddy versus Jason that did this.
Yeah. Yeah, only Freddy versus Jason. When I realised what Freddy could do, like Jason didn't scare me at all. Just a fucking big dude with a hockey mask. Like Freddy was terrifying because he could get you in your sleep, and that's what scared me the most. And that's why it's such a genius writer who came up with that idea for that.
Now, have you gone back and watched all the other Freddy films?
No, I won't go near them. I actually won't go near them.
Have you seen any other Freddy film?
I think
aside from the remake.
I think I started to watch. I watched I don't know why I went to see the remake, because after I saw Freddy vs. Jason, I promised myself I would never watch Freddy vs. Jason again, and I would never watch anything with Freddy ever again. For some reason, I watched the remake. I don't know why, but that was crap anyway, so it didn't scare me.
It was really bad.
I think a couple of years later, I was around a friend's house, and we were having like a guys' night in, and he was like, "Oh yeah, do you want to watch a horror film?" And I was like, "Oh fucking hell!" I was like, "Which one is it going to be?" And then he was like, "Oh yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street." And I just flat out just said no. I was like, "Don't even put it in. I can't watch it. Like, I really, really can't." And I've literally, maybe I would be scared now if I watch it. I don't know, but it scarred me so much when I was younger that I would never watch a film with Freddy in again, aside from the remake.
Well, I will say this. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, was probably the scariest one in my opinion. Some of the imagery that is in those dreams is downright terrifying. But my other point is, this is the age that we live in right now where you admit to having an overactive imagination, a really great imagination. This is the world, man, where someone like you should be considering writing your own Freddy story.
Well, the thing is, like, I've always thought to myself that I have seen quite enough horror films that I could almost write my own. Not necessarily even a Freddy one, but just a horror film that I know that would, I don't know how many people it would scare, but I know the things that would scare me, and that would like terrify me to my fucking core, and that would reach out to people, because I would make it so that it was something that is where, like, I would make it about where people most feel safe. So, like, say, for instance, Nightmare on Elm Street did. Most people felt safe in the bedroom. Same as Paranormal Activity. You felt safe, but then that was crushed and it was taken away from you because you were like, oh shit, that can actually happen to you where you're fucking sleeping as well. Yep. Amazing. So that's no longer a safe place anymore. Your bedroom's no longer safe. And that's kind of what I want to do. As I said, like, before, I'm like writing a book. But it's like a short story book with like different genres. There's about 8 different genres, and one of them's going to be a horror. And I have a good idea as to what I'm kind of going to do for that to make people make people shit themselves when they read it.
All right, before we get out of here, any spoilers with that? Any little Easter eggs that you want to be like, well, it's going to involve a red and black faced demon with a dual-sided dick, like Insidious.
I will say that it's going to involve a woman in a white dress who has an inhuman smile and wide eyes, and she can transform into anyone that she wants to, And then in the last minute, when you think that you're kind of safe with that person and you've really, like, you trust them and you bond with them, she then morphs back into this woman again and she kills you. But in a really kind of horrible way. And there's a lot more to it and to what makes it a lot more horrifying. But yeah, that's kind of a part of the premise of it. But yeah, there's definitely other ideas I want to have for horror stories, but that's kind of my first one that I'm going to be doing for this particular book. But yeah.
Okay, well, that's terrifying. The way you described the inhuman smile with the wide eyes, I don't like that whatsoever.
It's what, honestly, mate, it's what I always see. Like,
it's really freaky.
When I'm looking out a window and all you see is darkness, that's pretty much what I can imagine just popping up the window and looking back at me. And I still think that to this day when I look out a black window and suddenly, instantly, my mind is just fucking like turning and just like, oh yeah, by the way, this thing could come up to the window and have a look at you, by the way, while you're looking out the window.
What you just said is something that to this day always unnerves me. There's a few weird things that scare me. Okay, famously, people that listen to the show all know that I'm terrified of mirrors. Okay, what I haven't really talked about is I'm always nervous about looking out of windows at night too. And it's not because I'm scared of necessarily, what I'm going to see. I'm going to witness something terrible or anything like that. I'm always terrified I'm going to look out a window and I'm going to see someone looking right back at me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's not just looking out of a window, it's also looking into a window because it's happened before. Like one time in particular, my wife Brooke was very, very, very tired. And she heard my loud-ass truck come home, so she ran to the window. And apparently she was waving, but I didn't look up in time to see her waving. So I looked up, and I just saw her sunken-in eyes and a giant smile. And it scared the fucking shit out of me for, like, the rest of the night. And she was just trying to be pleasant. She was excited to see me come home. It scared the shit out of me because I was not expecting to look up and see her face. And I look up and immediately lock eyes with her with this giant smile on her face. And you don't expect to look into or out of a window and expect someone to be peering back at you, specifically knowing that you were there. And to see that, even though it was completely benign, scared the shit out of me. So I'm always scared of looking out of windows because you never know what's going to be looking right back at you.
Yes, obviously, especially at nighttime.
Yep.
During the day, you don't.
Pretty
really
close
think about
for
it.
you right now. So sorry about your future nightmares.
Speaking of that, actually, do you ever have have you ever had any nightmares that are like really kind of vivid and you've woken up like almost like terrified because of what you've just kind of witnessed?
Oh God, yes. Several of them. As a matter of fact, I've written a series of short stories that are slowly starting to get put up on No Sleep on Reddit that are based on nightmares that I had, a recurring nightmare specifically that I had for a couple of months.
I fucking hate the No Sleep Reddit. I hate it so much. I have read stories that have chilled me to my core.
Yep.
And I can't. I assume you've probably read this one. The woman with the orange.
That one doesn't sound familiar.
No, that's like, I swear that's one of the most popular ones on there. I think it's the one with the orange anyway, but it sounds so basic, but I read it and I was absolutely, oh man, I'd honestly suggest like going to read that. Orange. I'm just going to quickly look this up. Don't mind me.
Yeah, look it up and send me the link.
Yeah, I will do. I'll send you the link to it because fucking hell, it terrified me. And that was also one of the same things that had the kind of the inhuman smile and the wide eyes, and that's as soon as I saw that, and I think there was a picture of it as well. Once I see that picture, I like have to look away, and I'm like, but you can't unsee what you've just seen.
Yep.
Yep. But yeah, I haven't recorded a lot. Like I haven't sort of jotted down or put in like a lot of what my nightmares have been. But I've definitely had some that felt almost too real. I mean, what would you say would be the worst one you've had?
The worst one I had is actually the recurring nightmare that I had. It was a guy that was standing there. In every single dream, he's always standing right where I'm trying to go with a giant, wild-eyed smile and his eyes staring right at me. And everywhere I move, his eyes follow me.
Oh, Jesus
everywhere
Christ.
I move. And typically he's stationary like a statue, but every once in a while he would start slowly walking toward me. And as soon as I would try to, there was one dream that I had in particular where I was at a grocery store near where we live here. It's a chain of grocery stores called Wegmans. I was in a Wegmans and I'm walking down an aisle and I turn and then I'm face to face with him. God. Realized that his skin was pallid and his eyes were sunken back, but his tiny little pupils just stared right into mine, and he had this giant, wild smile that stretched almost from ear to ear. And as soon as I would try to sidestep to the side, he didn't move his head, but his eyes just followed me. So I finally made my way behind him, and I start to run a little bit quicker, and I turn around, and he's really close to me again, turned around, just standing there staring at me. And in some of my dreams, he moves. In others, he just stands there. In some of my dreams, he's actually stabbed me or attacked me. In others, he's pointing somewhere. In some, there are people that warn me that he's here or that he's coming. In some of the dreams, he's standing at the horizon, but I always know that he's there. Like, even to this day, if I have a dream, I have even felt recently like he's here. Like, that creature is near me. And to this day, he sometimes appears in my dreams. But yeah, for about 2 months straight, every time I closed my eyes, he was there.
So was there a point, like, did something change in the dream that suddenly he wasn't there anymore? And you were like, oh, why is he not there anymore?
I don't know. It just stopped one day.
Oh, okay. I bet you were relieved, though. I mean...
Oh, you have no idea. Like, it was one of those deals where... Have you ever slept for a good solid 8 hours, and then you wake up and it feels like you've slept for an hour and a half? Like, you did not get restful sleep?
Oh, yeah, you're groggy as hell.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt for, like, 2 months, no matter how much I slept.
Jesus Christ.
Whether it was a half-hour nap or a full 8 hours, didn't matter. I was always exhausted.
Wow. Okay. Jesus Christ. I mean, my worst one was one that I to this day I'm just not even sure what kind of happened to my body and what I was experiencing. But I woke up in my dream. Like it felt like I woke up anyway. And I was just lying in my bed, and like my door was open, and I suddenly, for some reason, I heard this sound of like a train, and I wasn't too sure. I was like, "Why does it sound like a train? That's a bit weird." And then it suddenly went from a train to sounding like slow footsteps, like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, "Fuck, what is that?" And then suddenly there was like nails. I could hear nails like scraping against my door, and this old kind of decrepit woman came into my bedroom. And she was wearing a hood, so I couldn't really see what she looked like. But she was just making a noise like that, like slowly moving towards me.
Right.
And I couldn't move. Like I physically couldn't move out my bed. And she literally got to the side of my bed. She climbed right on top of me, and she put her hand on my chest, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I was gasping for air, and she shoved her face like right into mine, and she had like these jagged like brown teeth, and she had red eyes, and she was just staring at me like almost like kind of screaming at me while like I felt like I couldn't breathe. And eventually, I think I just kind of like, I don't know what happened, but I suddenly jolted awake, and I was entirely out of breath, and I felt like this pain on my chest. And to this day, like I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, obviously, but to this day I have no idea what the fuck went on with my body or my brain, but it felt so real that I'll never forget it.
Okay, on that note, I think it's time for us to get out of here. Holy shit, that was terrifying, dude.
Right?
But also legitimately the perfect way to end the show, with that little bit of terror that will haunt your nightmares and my nightmares for probably weeks to come. That was legitimately unsettling, and wow. Andrew, where can everybody find you, man? Social media for them to follow. How do they find your channel? Aside from checking the show notes.
I think literally just type in Blade Drummer. I mean, I was actually really surprised that Blade Drummer was not taken on YouTube. There is not a single other person called Blade Drummer. So if you literally just type in, obviously, Blade Drummer on YouTube, you'll find me. I'll be the first one that pops up. Like, that's the beauty of it. I'm the first one that pops up when you type it in. I think pretty much Twitter. I think if you type in on Twitter, Blade Drummer, I will also be the first one to pop up. Also on Instagram, I think I'm Andy989, I believe. Yes. Andy989 for my Instagram. Oh, sorry. Andy_9898. But I'm getting fucking confused here.
You're fine.
But I think my Twitter's probably, because it's quite new, because I had an old Twitter. It was just my social one. But I thought I'd make a new one for just kind of Blade Drummer purposes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be the one to kind of go onto where you can find out what I'm doing in the future.
Right on, man. Right on. And if you want to find me, you can always find me on Twitter at Robbie Talks a Lot. And also just look for Nerdynomicon everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, everywhere. Look for Nerdynomicon, you'll find me. Look to the horizon, you'll see me standing there staring at you, not moving, as the Nerdynomicon. And if you really like what we're doing and you want to help us keep the lights on, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Nerdynomicon. Even donating $1 or $2 every single month helps out more than you can imagine. Okay, you get early access to everything that we do. You are able to vote for discussion topics. You're able to vote for film analysis topics. We've got plenty of fun things over there. But if you don't have the money to help us out, but you still like the show enough to try to help us move forward, that's great. We don't always need your money, especially right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. What are you doing thinking about that, right? Even just sharing this podcast around, telling people about us. Tell your mom, your best friend, tell your fucking grandma about the Nerdynomicon and join the pop cult, man. Become a pop cultist yourself. That's it, man. That's going to take us out of it for our very first Halloween show of 2020, this wretched, putrid, abomination, abortion of a year. But once again, the best way to fight against that is to create. And in some cases, it's creating fucking nightmare fuel like Andrew just did for me.
A pleasure as always to do so.
All right, until next time, guys, I've been Robbie.
And I'm Blade Drummer.
Let's close the book.